She always showed up before noon, like clockwork. Same corner seat by the window, same cup of tea she never finished. I didn't know her name at first. Just that she was my stepmom's friend, the one who helped her plan garden parties, and talked softly about people I barely remembered. The first time I saw her outside the house was at the cafe near the station. She was sitting alone, reading from her phone, her glasses sliding down a little. The kind of small imperfection that made her look real in a way most people didn't anymore. I'd been killing time between shifts, pretending to study. I wasn't expecting her to look up, but she did. A small, surprised smile. "Oh," she said, "you're Allison Stepson, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, you remembered. How could I not? You were the only one at her dinner who didn't talk over anyone." I laughed, quietly, because it wasn't really funny. She smiled again, one of those careful smiles that end too soon, like she's not sure she's allowed to hold it. After that, I started noticing her everywhere. Sometimes in the grocery aisle, sometimes at the same cafe, always alone. There was something rhythmic about her presence, like the world made more sense when she was somewhere in it. She started remembering things: my usual order, black coffee, 2 sugars, the way I always checked my phone but never typed. Once, she asked, "Waiting on someone?" I said, "Not really." And she said nothing after that. Just nodded, like she understood the kind of waiting that doesn't have a name. One morning, it rained, the kind of cold drizzle that sticks to your clothes. The cafe was nearly empty. She came in, hair damp, scarf half twisted around her neck. I stood to give her the dry seat by the heater. "You'll get me in trouble," she said softly as she sat, smoothing the fabric of her skirt. I blinked. "For what?" "For letting you look at me like that." Her words hung between us, quiet but impossible to ignore. I looked away first, pretending to study the condensation on my cup. She didn't move for a while. Just traced the rim of her mug with a finger. "You're too young," she murmured. "Old enough to know when something feels real." Her eyes flicked toward me, quick as lightning and just as dangerous. Then she exhaled, a sound half laugh, half surrender. We didn't say much after that. The silence wasn't awkward, it was almost considerate. The kind where both people know words might ruin it. I folded the napkin in front of me, again and again, until it looked like a paper crane. She watched, smiled faintly. "You always fidget when you're thinking," she said. "And you always notice when I do." That made her look down. The corners of her lips twitched, but she didn't answer. When she left, she put on her coat slowly, like each button needed to be remembered. Then she said, "Don't make this harder than it already is." "I'm not trying to." "I know." She paused. "That's the problem." That night, I kept checking my phone. No messages, just the same quiet apartment, the same reflection of myself in the dark window. Then, near midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You left your umbrella at the cafe. Come by tomorrow, if you promise not to make trouble." I stared at the screen, then typed back before I could stop myself, "Then let's be trouble together." And for the first time in months, I didn't delete what I wrote. The next afternoon, I went back to the cafe, half hoping she wouldn't be there, half hoping she would. She was. Same half-finished tea. My umbrella was leaning against the chair beside her like she'd been keeping it safe. When she looked up, I saw something flicker across her face. A mix of surprise and something softer, something she tried to hide behind a polite smile. "You came?" she said. "You texted." "I shouldn't have." "But you did." She sighed. "You don't make this easy." I shrugged, pretending to focus on my coffee. "Maybe it's not supposed to be easy." The rain outside made the world look watercolor, edges blurred, colors running into each other. She sat across from me, hands wrapped around her mug, her nails short and unpolished. It felt unfair how simple things about her could pull me in like gravity. After a while, she spoke. "I used to come here with my ex-husband. Every Sunday. He'd sit there, complain about the music, and I'd smile like I didn't mind." I didn't say anything. The way she said ex-husband, not bitter, not sad, just factual, made something twist in my chest. "What about now?" I asked. She smiled without humor. "Now I come alone. Easier to hear myself think." There was a quiet between us that felt almost fragile. I wanted to tell her I knew that silence. The kind that fills a house when no one's waiting for you to come home. But I didn't. I just nodded, tracing the rim of my cup like she had the day before. She noticed. You do that too, she said. Mimic people when you listen. Bad habit. No, she said. It means you pay attention. Her words hit harder than they should have. Maybe because most people didn't notice when I listened. She reached for her phone, scrolling absent-mindedly. A photo flashed on the screen, her and my stepmom at some party both laughing. If she'd knew I was here with you, she'd probably kill me, she said, half smiling. Would she? She'd think I should know better. And do you? She looked at me for a long moment, eyes steady. I used to. That stayed with me. The way she said used to, like something in her had unlearned restraint without permission. We lingered after closing. The barista wiped tables in the background, giving us that polite, "Take your time, look that really means, please leave soon." She stood, gathering her things. I reached to hand her the umbrella, and for a second, our fingers brushed. A small, ordinary touch, except it wasn't. She didn't pull back right away. Just looked down at where our hands met, then up at me. There was no smile this time, just quiet understanding, and maybe a little fear. I should go, she said. I know. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. You shouldn't wait for me here tomorrow. But she said it too gently, like someone hoping I wouldn't listen. I watched her disappear into the rain, my hand still warm where she'd touched it. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I didn't go to the cafe the next day. I told myself I was giving her space, that it was better this way. But by the third day, the silence started to ache. When I finally walked in again, she was already there. No tea this time, just water, her phone on the table face down. She looked up surprised. You did, and I never said I would. That made her laugh, a small, reluctant sound. The kind that escapes before you can stop it. I thought maybe you'd gotten bored, she said, stirring nothing in her glass. Off what? She shrugged. Whatever this is. I wanted to answer, but the words stayed behind my teeth. Whatever this was didn't have a name, and naming it might have ruined it. We talked about nothing for a while. Weather, books, the cafe's new chairs that wobbled slightly on one side. She kept brushing a strand of hair from her face, and each time, my hand twitched, wanting to do it for her. And then someone called her name. Allison. My stepmom stood by the counter holding a to-go cup. For a split second, I thought I imagined her. But no, her eyes flicked from me to her, and something unreadable passed through her expression. Hey, my stepmom said slowly, I didn't know you two knew each other outside of dinners. Her friend. My trouble smiled, calm but stiff. Oh, just ran into him here once or twice. He mentioned this place. I could tell she was lying. My stepmom nodded, polite but curious, then waved and left. The bell above the door jingled, sharp as a warning. After she was gone, we sat in silence. The air felt heavier. She'll put it together, I said quietly. She replied too quickly, then softer, she can't. She looked away, fingers tapping the table like she was keeping time to a song only she could hear. I shouldn't have texted you, she said finally. Whatever we're doing, it's not fair to either of us. Maybe not, I said. Her eyes flicked up, fast, then back down. You think you know what that means? I do. You're 20. You don't. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I didn't say anything, just reached for her empty glass and slid it aside, clearing space between us that felt like miles. When she scubbed to leave, the chair legs scraped the floor, loud in the quiet room. I thought she'd just walk away. But she stopped behind me, her voice barely above a whisper. You make it hard to remember why I shouldn't. And then, her hand brushed my shoulder. Light, barely there. But it stayed long enough to feel deliberate. I turned, slowly. She didn't move. For a second, we were close enough that I could see the reflection of my own face in her eyes. Something flickered between us, half want, half warning. Then she stepped back, breath unsteady. Don't follow me out. She left before I could promise I wouldn't. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air still felt like it was holding its breath. We didn't talk for almost a week. I tried to keep busy, extra shifts, late nights, mindless scrolling. But everything just circled back to her. The way she'd said, "You make it hard to remember why I shouldn't." It played in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. When I finally saw her again, it wasn't at the cafe, it was by accident, or maybe not. A grocery store parking lot at dusk. She stood by her car, struggling with a bag that had split open, oranges rolling onto the wet pavement. I jogged over before I could think. "Let me help." She looked startled at first, then tired. "You shouldn't be here. It's a public parking lot." "That's not what I meant." Still, she didn't stop me from crouching down beside her, picking up the fruit. One of them was bruised, the skin soft to the touch. I held it out. "This one's done for." She took it anyway. I have a habit of keeping things past their best. That line hit harder than she knew. We loaded the rest into her trunk. She leaned against it, arms folded, the evening light catching in her hair. There was no one else around, just the hum of a streetlight, the sound of far-off traffic. "You look tired," I said. "I am. Work. Life." Something about the way she said it made me want to reach for her. Instead, I shoved my hands into my pockets. She looked at me then. Really looked. "You shouldn't wait around for someone like me. I'm not uncomplicated." "I'm not looking for uncomplicated." That made her laugh, quiet and bitter. "You think this is some movie moment. You'll say the right thing, I'll forget my age, and suddenly it's worth the fallout." Her voice cracked just slightly at the end, and I realized it wasn't anger. It was fear. "I saw you the other day," she said suddenly. "With that girl, at the cafe counter. Just a coworker." "I know," she said quickly. "It's none of my business." But her hands were gripping her sleeves too tightly. "You were watching me?" I asked, careful. "I wasn't." She stopped, exhaled. Maybe for a moment. The space between us grew smaller without either of us moving. I could smell the rain still clinging to her coat. "You scare me," she said quietly. "Why?" "Because I don't remember the last time I wanted something that felt this wrong." Her voice broke on the last word. I looked at her, and for the first time, she didn't look composed. She looked human. I stepped closer. Close enough to see the faint tremor in her jaw, the pulse at her neck. She didn't move away this time. "I think about you," I said barely above a whisper. "I know." A long pause. The kind that holds everything unsaid. Her hand twitched, like she might reach out, then didn't. "Tell me," she said softly. "What do you think happens next?" I opened my mouth to answer. But she was already stepping back, and whatever I might have said stayed trapped in the air between us. She stopped coming to the cafe. The first day I thought maybe she was busy. The second day, I told myself I didn't care. By the end of the week, I was still sitting in the same seat, pretending to scroll my phone, pretending not to check the door every time the bell rang. The staff probably thought I was waiting for someone who wasn't going to show. Maybe they were right. On the 8th day, I got a text. "I think it's better if we don't see each other for a while. Take care of yourself." No explanation. I typed a dozen replies. Deleted them all. A few days later, I saw her car outside my stepmom's house. I almost walked up, but something stopped me, the sound of laughter from the backyard. My stepmom's and hers. It was easy laughter, casual, practiced. The kind you use when pretending nothing's out of place. I waited in my car until she came out. She didn't see me at first. She looked lighter somehow, like she'd rehearsed normal and nailed it. When she finally noticed me, her face changed, not surprised, not guilty, just tired. She walked over, stopping a few feet away. "You shouldn't be here. You used to say that when you wanted me to be." "That was a mistake." "Which part?" She hesitated. "All of it." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I found out later, from my stepmom casually over dinner, that her friend had gone back to see her ex-husband. They're trying to make things work," she'd said, slicing vegetables. "He's changed, apparently. Or so she hopes." I didn't say anything, just nodded, pretending it didn't sting. But later, lying in bed, I kept replaying the way she'd said it's better if we don't see each other. Like she wasn't asking, like she'd already decided for both of us. A week passed. Then another. One night, after a late shift, I walked by the cafe again. It was closed, chairs stacked on tables, lights off except for one dim lamp near the counter. I saw her reflection in the glass before realizing she was actually inside, talking to the barista, laughing at something I couldn't hear. I almost went in, hand on the door, breath caught mid-thought. But then she looked up, and in that split second her eyes met mine. She froze. The smile vanished. Neither of us moved. Then she gave the smallest shake of her head, slow, deliberate, and turned back toward the counter. I stepped away before she could look again. That night, I opened my phone. Drafted one more message. I'm still where you left me. But I didn't send it. I just stared at the blinking cursor until the words blurred. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I didn't plan to see her again, but life has a strange way of looping back on itself, like the same song restarting when you thought it had ended. It happened on a Sunday. My stepmom had invited a few people over for dinner. I didn't know she'd be there until I saw her coat hanging by the door. Same one she wore that night in the parking lot. For a moment, I just stood there in the hallway, every reason to leave evaporating under the weight of habit. When she finally noticed me, she froze mid-laugh. The conversation around us blurred into background noise. Hey, I said quietly. Hey, her voice was Eden, but her hands fidgeted with her glass. The kind of tell you'd only notice if you'd spent hours watching her pretend to be fine. Dinner felt like an endurance test. Polite conversation, clinking cutlery, laughter that didn't belong to either of us. I caught her glancing toward me once. Just once. And that was enough to undo all the distance she'd built. After dessert, I stepped outside for air. She followed a few minutes later. The backyard was dim, lit only by the porch light. Crickets filled the silence. She stood beside me, close but careful, like she didn't want anyone inside to notice. You shouldn't have come, she said softly. I live here, right? A pause. I meant this was a bad idea. Then why did you come? She exhaled. Because pretending not to care is harder than pretending this doesn't matter. The honesty caught me off guard. I turned toward her. So which one are you doing right now? She smiled faintly, eyes tired. Both. For a long time, we didn't speak. Just the quiet rhythm of two people who knew too much and said too little. Finally, she said, he asked me to move back in. I felt something inside me tighten, and I told him I'd think about it. There it was. The truth I didn't want, given gently like mercy. I nodded. He should. He's your life. She turned sharply. Don't say that like you believe it. I met her eyes. What else is there to say? The silence stretched, taut, heavy. I thought she might walk away. Instead, she stepped closer. You were never supposed to mean anything, she whispered. But you did. Her hand brushed against mine, hesitant, almost afraid. It wasn't a gesture of romance. It was something quieter, recognition, gratitude, maybe regret. I covered her hand with mine, not to hold it, just to let her know I understood. She looked up at me, eyes shining but steady. We'll both be okay, won't we? Yeah, I said. She smiled then, the smallest, saddest smile I'd ever seen. Okay, she whispered. And just like that, she pulled her hand away and went back inside. I stayed outside a while longer, listening to the soft hum of the porch light. It was the sound of something ending gently, instead of breaking. A year passed before I saw her again. Not in a cafe, or a dinner, or a chance crossing of paths, but at the farmer's market of all places. Saturday morning 8:47 a.m., she was standing at a tea stall, holding a jar of honey. Wearing the same soft blue scarf she used to wrap around her neck when it rained. For a moment, I just watched her from a distance. The way her hair caught the sunlight. The way she tilted her head slightly while reading the label. Like she still thought about things that didn't matter to anyone but her. She noticed me before I could decide what to do. Black coffee, she said, smiling like it hadn't been a year. Still, I said, you still can't finish a cup of tea. It was the kind of small exchange that carried the weight of everything unspoken. No rush, no sting. Just quiet recognition that time had done what it always does. Softened the sharp edges without erasing them. We walked a bit. Talked about safe things. Her garden, my new job, the cafe that had changed ownership. Somewhere in between, she said she'd moved into a small place by the coast. Alone this time. I like hearing the sea at night, she said. Makes the silence sound less empty. I nodded. You seem lighter. I stopped waiting for perfect. The words hung between us like sunlight through leaves. Ordinary, but somehow enough. We ended up at a bench overlooking the park. The same kind of spot where we might have once sat, years too early, when everything felt like it could still go wrong. Now, it just felt steady. She set her tea beside her, still full. I placed my coffee next to it. 2 cups, parallel lines close but not touching. Do you ever think about it? I asked quietly. She didn't pretend not to understand. Sometimes, mostly when I smell rain. I smiled. Me too. A pause. The wind lifted a strand of her hair, and she didn't move to fix it. I don't regret it, she said finally. Not the moments. Just the timing. Timing's overrated, I said. She gave me a look, half amused, half wistful. You'd say that? We didn't need to say much more. Some stories don't end with promises. They end when 2 people can finally sit in the same silence and not ache for more. As we stood to leave, she touched my sleeve. A light, steady touch. Take care of yourself, she said. You too. I watched her walk away, the blue scarf bright against the gray morning. And for the first time, it didn't feel like loss. Just quiet peace. Later, as I sipped what was left of my coffee, I noticed her cup still half full on the bench beside me. Steam rising, faint and fleeting. Something only we would understand.